Okay, so we're going to be working on our assignment for this week. This week's assignment focuses on using adjectives and nouns. Now, we're going to be working on a drawing this week. Now, we've already covered a few of the more complex things in order to just copy and paste images, cutting images, and stuff like that. So we're going to work on a few of the more simple drawing techniques and a couple of coloring techniques. Now, I'll come back to the topic itself and what specifically we're going to be drawing shortly, but I wanted to go ahead and talk about this. So if I go to photopea.com, this is where I usually go to make your art pieces. But one of the things I wanted to go ahead and talk about is the fact that it's not letting me delete it. Anyway, is the fact that I want you to be able to use whatever tools you are comfortable with. So if you're not comfortable using a photo editing tool or you don't have it on your computer, that's fine. Don't worry about it. It is not a big deal. Now, you can use a regular pencil and paper and you can draw it out, and that's fine. I'm not going to be judging you on that. I'm not going to be overly grading on that. Don't worry about it. Do the best that you can. Now, with your drawings themselves, you can use pencil, you can use pencil and paper, you can use marker, you can use pen, you can use colored pencils, you can use whatever tools you have available right now. Now, the reason why I have Photopea and why I'm teaching you these photo editing programs is because I know full well that all of you have computers right now. So I am making sure that you have the tool that you have available, and right now the computer is what's available. Now, unfortunately, if you don't have a mouse, it's going to make it very difficult in order to draw on the computer itself, because the little touchpad on the screen, it's just not good enough to catch all the little details that you need to do. One of the things I wanted to go ahead and point out is that on here you have the option to have a new project, open one on your computer that you already have, or you can, and these are the files that are accepted by the program. Now you'll notice right here it has PSD, that is for Photoshop. That means if you have the actual Photoshop program, you can take the actual Photoshop images and use them on this computer. You can use the Sketch program files. You can use PDF files. You can use, this one right here is a Photo Editor XD, I believe, is the name that it's called. I may be mistaken. Don't judge me on that one. I don't use that program. This right here, the XCF, that is the GIMP program, and that is what that saves as. That means that you're still able to use those even if you're not using them in there. You can also use raw images or just a regular image by itself. So the raw images are usually what's taken on your computer or your cell phone camera. So that means that pretty much any picture you take should be able to be uploaded onto here. So you're going to need this one for now, and you're also going to need it in a couple of weeks for another assignment. Now, these right here, Photoshop, GIMP, this XD program, and Sketch all have the same basic tools that I've been showing you how to use. You just have to find them. They might be in a different location. But most of these programs do have these specific tools, which is why I'm taking the time to show you how to use them, because they're very common and very easy to use. Now, the first thing that I would want you to do with this is to go ahead and open, as always, open a new file. Go to print, scroll down to letter, and create. That creates your page. Okay, this is where you're going to be drawing at. These are all your tools. Notice I have changed the photo. Some of you might have noticed right here that I have changed the program that I'm using. Specifically because I've been having a little bit of difficulty with being able to access all the tools on the left-hand side, so I've changed which tools that I'm using, and hopefully this allows me to be able to interact with you a little bit better and to give a slightly bit better tutorial. Now, on the left side of the screen, we have the Select tool, the Lasso tool, the Object Selection, the crop tool. So the crop tool means if you have an image on a new layer right here, you can go ahead and just select it and crop out a small section, or you can select the entire paper and make your image smaller. This one is the eyedropper. This is used to collect colors and the other patterns that you can measure. So if you notice right here, it has the option to switch between the two. You have a few extra options up here. I'm not going to really discuss these right now. The next thing, you have the spot healing. Don't worry about that one. And this is the one that we're going to be using most of today. The brush tool, the pencil tool. We're not really going to be getting into color replacement right now. We can, but we're not going to be getting into that right now. This is the stamper. This is going to have different textures and patterns that you can go ahead and stamp in. This is really good when you're doing things like making trees or something like that, and you really just want to kind of fill the space pretty quickly. And you can make adjustments to that to show the different sizes and blending and how that works. Obviously, we have right here we have the eraser, the gradient tool. That's how you make the transition from dark to light, and I'll show you a very simple way to color something with that later on in this video. You have the blur tool, you have the dodge tool, you have the typing tool, the pen, a path select, where you're going to ignore path select. This is an advanced tool. You're not doing that right now. And then you have the rectangle. Now, this is just basically to make shapes. That's it. It's just to make a shape. It makes a square. That's it. Don't overcomplicate what it is. Now, let's go to the main subject of this assignment. Now, this assignment focuses on using nouns and adjectives. Nouns refer to the objects that you're talking about. Adjectives refer to how you're going to describe it. What attribute does it have? So, for example, as I mentioned, what I have here is tall T-Rex, short Brontosaurus, slow raptors, or weird teachers. Now, these descriptors, these are very, very simple combinations, but that's basically what I'm expecting for you. Now, if you scroll down, I have included a list of adjectives and a list of nouns, and you can just go ahead and go in and pick two, or you can go to this random generator. So this is the random generator. Okay, so you just click the button until you find one that you like. Okay. So this one says colorful apartments. I'm just going to go ahead and go with that one. So what you're going to do, you're going to go to photopea.com. You need to click type. And you're going to type. For some reason, that did not actually type in color. So that's interesting. Oh, that's up here. Okay, so we just need to select the right color. So just make sure to click black. Then you can go ahead and click the move tool and move this over and make it a little bit bigger, however you want to do, so that you can see, so that I can see exactly what misspelled that. Exactly what you're trying to draw. Now you can change the font. Now, when I talked about font, I'm talking about what shape, what style your letters are. Now, usually in the Word program, it says font at the top. But for this one, you can go ahead and just click through. And because this is art, I'm not going to judge you if you decide to use a weird one. The only thing I request is that you do not do this. Don't do that. Choose a font that I can read, okay? Because it's not going to let me select it or anything like that. So I'm just going to select one that I think is a little bit more fun, and I'm going to reduce the size until it just fits the bottom area of your page. Now, you don't want to draw over the top of it, okay? You're going to want to draw up in this space, but not on top of this. So you're just going to go ahead, and one thing you can do edit, stroke, oops, and you can do that, and that'll change it and turn it into a shape. Once it's in a new layer in and of itself, it allows it to be able to attach to the specific things. The next thing you're going to do, you're going to want to make a new layer, because this is where you're going to draw. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and get started drawing my design. So one thing you can do, you can select it. Let's say in this case it says colorful apartment, so I want to make the outlines for my apartment. I'm going to be looking into the apartment, I think, would be a good option. Let's make it a little bigger. I'm going to do this. Stroke. Make it black. Position. Outside. Okay. And it should go ahead and make that line. Now at this point, it's on a new layer. You can move that wherever you want. It's not going... Oops. Make sure you unselect your item if that's what you want to, if you want to move it, make sure to unselect it. So now you can adjust it, you can move it wherever you want. If you saw that little red line up here, that means it's lined up with the center of the paper. That is a good trick to be able to do that. Now, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and start doing a basic drawing. Now, I'm going to be drawing everything on this layer, but you can draw with whatever layer you want. I'm going to increase the point fontness of the font so that I can just make a nice, strong line. It's going to be a very simple drawing right now. I don't want to overthink it. Oh, it's not in black. Hold on a second. That's fine. So obviously I'm just freehanding it right now, and it's going to be a little bit tricky to get it exactly the way you want it. I'm just trying to get a general idea right now of where I want things to be. Now in this case, I'm just kind of moving this line around. Obviously, it's really wonky right now. It's really wobbly, and that's fine. It's perfectly fine. You can go in and erase things later. Now, I don't really like these lines, so I'm going to go ahead and redo them. And if you'll give me just 1 minute, I'm going to go ahead and add a few details to continue onwards. Okay, so I went ahead and made a very general drawing. I made it very quickly, so it's not particularly clean, but I wanted to go ahead and give you a general idea of how this works, and I didn't want to make this video too long. So just a reminder, once you have your initial drawing done, you can set up your guidelines on one layer, and your drawing itself on another. These little eye shapes, as you can see, they make it so that you can see a layer or erase it. Now, once you have it done, your general idea done, you can go ahead and erase the guidelines that you don't want to see anymore. And once you're happy with that, you want to go ahead and select your layer and make sure that, and you can do as many layers as you need. If you want a layer for the chair, a layer for the window, a layer for the background, and maybe your drawing isn't a room. It doesn't have to be a room, because remember, we're using what is termed by the random generator. Now I got colorful apartment, so that's what I'm doing. Now, one thing you're going to be doing, you're going to go to you're going to go to layer, and you're going to go merge down. What that's going to do is it's going to take the layers that you have, the one layer, the layer that's on top is going to merge with the layer that's right beneath it. So if you have another layer down here, it's not going to touch that one yet. It's only going to merge to that one. Okay, it's just going to sandwich those two together so that now all those lines disappear. The next thing you want to do, you have two options. Option 1 is to create a new layer, and to go ahead and just start coloring however you want to color. Now, you can free color. You can select the brush. You can select down here, select a color, and let's say you want to do red. You can go ahead and select the bottom layer and start coloring. You can increase the size however you want to do it to just start coloring those layers in. Do you have to? Not really. There are other options to making this work. You don't have to do it all freehand. You can. I'm not going to say you can't. You can do it all freehand if you want to do it all freehand. But the first thing you want to do that I would recommend is to go ahead and go in with a small brush and just make sure all your lines connect. Once you do that, it's going to make it so that when you select an area, it's going to select only that area, and it gives you a good foundation that you can work from. Double check that it's black. Okay, select the layer. Just darkening that in just a little bit, just to fill those lines in and make sure all those sections are connected. Now again, this is not the only way to do it, and you will have to go in and touch it up a little bit here and there, but it's not absolutely necessary for you to do all these different things. Now, one option for being able to color, and that is to go ahead and select object selection. Okay? That's going to select an entire outline of an object. Now, that's if you have the object to select. Now, this right here, as you can see, it's not really working because of the fact that my object is very sketchy. Another option is this magnetic lasso tool. So you would hold down while you're clicking, go to magnetic lasso, and what that allows you to do is you're clicking and you just kind of drag it. Come on. There it goes. Let me try that again. Click. And that gets you started. And you see that little line? That is snapping to all the corners around the edge of the shape. And it might not be perfect. You might have to erase parts of it later. That's fine. Take your time. Stick as close as you can to the edge of that object. And when you click again on that start, it should select that entire space. You go down to the bottom layer, and at this point, you can select your gradient. So it said colorful, so I'm going to make it really colorful. I'm going to go the full spectrum, the full rainbow. Okay. I'm going to drag from the left to the right. Full rainbow. And that just fills up that entire space. Now I'm going to go ahead and do that magnetic lasso again. This time I'm going to do it for the ground. I'm going to click back to the layer for the top. Make sure you click outside of your original one. If it's not wanting to undo, you can always come up here and select a different tool. Then come back to the select this. Just click randomly in a space, and you can select with a random lasso once again. Make sure that first little square pops up before you start moving. Come on. It might take it a second. Be patient with it because it's online. It's not going to be as good as some other ones might be. There it is. You're going to want to drag that little line around your objects. Come back to the normal one. click it, and then you can go ahead and either you can use a gradient, you can use the paint bucket, however you want to do it. If you click down on the gradient and hold it, that's where the paint bucket tool comes from. You can do the gradient tool again. I'm going to choose a different one this time. And you can choose any colors that you want. These right here, so if I'm going to go ahead and do, I'm going to click the second one. And I'm going to pick a second color. My secondary color is going to be purple. Yes, I'm going to make it purple. Why not? It didn't make it purple, so it made it white. So you can, there it goes. When I selected purple, it selected this top one right here. I'm going to go ahead and try that again. So the darker color should always be the furthest away from you and the furthest away from the light source. This helps to create that idea. So I'm going to go ahead and pause it, finish coloring this space with just general blocks of color, and then I'm going to show you a new way to do this, to do another tool to color with. Okay, so the next tool I wanted to go ahead and show you is the magic wand. So if you're having with the random shapes like these, the magic wand works really well, but the magic lasso works really well. But if you have large open spaces like this roof area, the wall, it's easier to go ahead and use the magic wand. So if you go ahead and go over here to the left where it says select, you're going to hold down the button over these things until you see magic wand. Now, this one's under object select. When you click magic wand, what's going to happen, make sure you're selecting this top layer that has the lines where your actual drawing is, not where your colors are, where your drawing is. You're going to select that one. Make sure you have magic wand selected. You're going to go in and click a space. And what happens is that it selects the space itself. So you're going to go ahead and go down to the bottom layer, select whatever color you're going to use. I'm going to go ahead and make the roof slightly orangey, I think. And then you can go ahead and go select paint bucket, drop that in, and now it's filled. So you can go back to the magic wand, select, and see how it selected everything? You're going to go over to the top layer. You're going to have to undo it. Go to the top layer with your drawings, select magic wand, click, and it should select an entire space. Now, I want the walls, we're still doing that rainbow effect, so I want to go ahead and do the gradients. So I'm going to get the gradient tool, go back over your paint bucket, switch to gradient again, select up top. Remember, I wanted to make the room more of a rainbow tone, so I'm going to go ahead and this time I'm going to, instead of going side to side, I'm going to go up and down. And you'll notice that it changes everything else. It accidentally selected the pillow, but that's okay. It's alright if the pillow matches a little bit. So, but I'm not quite sure I like how that comes out. So it made a very narrow strip in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that one. And I'm going to stretch it out a little bit more and watch what happens. It changed the way that it colored it in. But you can also go in at a slight angle, and it's going to change the angle of the colors. How you decide to layer it is up to you. You can even make it bigger than the original spot. And that's what I'm going to go ahead and do this time. So it makes the pillow a little bit green, but that's okay. Green's a nice color. I like it. So I'm going to go ahead and go undo. Make sure I select the color layer. Color that in. The next thing you're going to do, you're going to select the next side. Whoops, I'm back on the lower layer level again. Make sure you're clicking the upper level. And this time, I'm going to go ahead and return back to the bottom. Gradients. And large again. Going horizontally. Color the curtains, but that's okay. Now, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to go ahead and show you that magic lasso tool before. The actual magnetic lasso works really well when you have an object in these spaces, but you don't really want to color those objects as well. So you can go ahead and select it, use the magic lasso, select your object, so that it's not getting mixed in with the rest of the gradients. And with the magic lasso, you can go ahead and select objects that you need to make sure that that you want to keep separate from the main gradients. Now again, you can go ahead and freehand color. That is 100% an option for you. But I wanted to go ahead and give you this general technique to be able to color these in. Now once you have the object lassoed, you can go ahead and you can either color it with a gradient or you can color it freehand, however you want to do it, just to make sure that you have filled in the spaces. Now I'm going to go ahead and use the paint dropper. And I'm going to do one solid blend for the entire thing, just for right now, just to make sure that it is really noticeable. I'm going to go with the green this time, just for right here. Now, going back up to the top layer, you can go in with the magic wand and select the rest of the frame. You can hold Shift to add extra areas, and then you can go in and color these much easier than you normally would be able to color them. And as you can see, for the most part, it skipped the actual portion on the inside. Now, it did have a few issues, so I'm going to go ahead and change that up just a little bit. Select the top. I'm going to select the bottom layer this time. I'm going to go ahead and stick to the magic wand, click the little button, and this time I'm going to go ahead and do that large gradient. Whoops. Go back to the gradient, go back to that rainbow gradient, and go rather large like so. And you can erase areas, you can add areas, you can adjust them as you see fit. And as you can see, it kind of blended all the way across. I don't really like the way that looks, so I am going to continue adding and changing things up as I see fit. And then I will come in to show you one last tool. Okay, so now you have the basic colors in. I wanted to show you one last tool. Now these tools right here are the dodge and burn tools. These are really, really helpful when you want to add highlights or shadows. The burn tool works really well to add your shadows. So I'm going to go ahead and make my mouse really, really big, so you can see the cursor really large, and that's fine. And you want to make the hardness about 71-ish. It doesn't have to be, you can make it lighter, you can make it darker. It just means how many times you have to go over it. Now I'm going to go ahead and use the burn tool, and as you can see, as I go over those lines, what's happening is it's making those areas darker. So I want to go around the bottom edges of my objects, and you might have to go 2, 3, 4, 5, even 6 or 7 times. It doesn't matter. As long as you're going around the outside edges of your objects, what's going to happen is it's going to start making the sections darker. Now, this is really helpful when you want to make it look a little bit more realistic, but you don't have to worry about being too specific in areas. You just have to get the general idea. The more times you go over an area, the darker it's going to get, and it's going to look more detailed, more realistic. This is the burn tool again. That's what's making it darker. Now, if you want to make it lighter, you're going to use the dodge tool. Now, the dodge tool, what's happening, These are all things that when you were doing old photography, when you were doing photography originally, when you were using old cameras and doing photo editing and developing, what you would do is you would use kind of like a filter that has, it's basically a piece of paper that has a hole in it, and what would happen is it would make certain areas darker by exposing them to light just a little bit longer than other areas. And that's what created the shadows, to make them just a little bit darker in areas that you wanted them to darken. When they were first working with cameras and stuff like that, that's what they would have to do. Now, it was literally called burning because you were literally burning the image in for just a little bit longer. And so what would happen is that those areas would get just a little bit darker and cause it to stick up just a little bit more and be a little bit more noticeable. Now let's say, for example, you want things to get lighter. How they would do that, they would basically had a stick with a cotton ball at the end, and what they would do is they would move that very quickly over a space in order to make the areas lighter. So if you go over here and you click to dodge, as you can see, it's still a stick and it still has a cotton ball at the end. So you go ahead and do the dodge, and what's going to happen is now the dodge makes those areas lighter, not darker. Now I'm going to go ahead and make my tool a little bit larger again, just so you can see the differences a little bit more easily and see those highlights right at the top. Now, you don't have to do the highlight on every object, but adding it here and there will add a little bit more depth to your artwork. Now I'm going to go ahead and add it in a burst ray coming out from this skylight area. And obviously, like I said, this is just a very simple tutorial. If I was doing this for my own actual artwork, I'd be doing way more detailed, but I don't really feel up to doing that right now, especially not for a very simple tutorial, because the more complex, the more layers, the more complex, the longer the video. So I'm just adding just a little bit of light, and notice it's blurring these backgrounds out, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect, okay? So there we have the colorful apartments. Now, when you're done with your assignments, remember that you need to go ahead and go to File, Export as JPEG. Now, you can flatten the image first if you want to. You don't have to. You're going to make sure to go all the way to 100%. Make sure you're saving it like that. That's very important if you want it to save properly. Now, I just accidentally clicked 50. Make sure you're clicking 100%. You can even type it in if you want to, if the slider is not working. And click Save. And then you're going to go to Google Classroom. You're going to go to the assignment. You're going to upload it there.